Chairman Harkin and Senator Enzi and members of the Health Committee and other staff, thank you so much for inviting me to talk today and share my story, as well as talk about some of the issues I know affect many other homeless and foster children. I am not an expert on policy, but I do know how I've been affected by it, and I hope my experiences can help you make the choices that will improve the system. My name is Kayla VanDyke. I'm 18 years old, and I've been in 7 different foster care placements, as well as being in 10 different schools since I was 4 years old. I've been homeless, I've experienced living in a shelter, and I've been separated from my siblings along the way. But I'm pleased to tell you that despite the statistics that suggest that roughly half of foster children and homeless youth do not finish high school, I will be graduating in 4 weeks with a 3.7 GPA. Thank you. I'm on track to attend Hamline University in the fall, and right after that, complete an internship with Foster Club, which is the national network for youth in foster care. I entered into foster care for the first time when I was 4 years old. After 3.5 years of being in placements with my siblings, I was returned to my mother. Soon after that, we experienced homelessness. I completely stopped attending school, so I have no 4th grade education. We stayed with a family friend for a few months before we were accepted into a homeless shelter in Minneapolis. It was September by then, and I can remember thinking that I should be going to school soon. When I showed up at Lake Harriet Elementary School on the first day of 5th grade, there was no record of my education in St. Paul. But the issue wasn't pressed, and I was allowed to enter into classes immediately. I was used to being the most motivated and smartest person in the class. However, because of my educational hiatus, I could barely keep up. I was also ashamed of where I was living, and I tried hard to hide the fact that I was living in a shelter from the other students. I became very lonely and withdrawn. I later started receiving help from a counselor who donated her time at the shelter where I lived. She helped me overcome a lot of the emotional pain I had been experiencing as a result of my homelessness. In turn, I began to feel more comfortable at school and became engaged in activities. Not only did she guide me, but she also helped me gain access to resources like scholarships for summer. I ended up going to the YMCA camp and for just once feeling very normal. Looking back, I realized what a huge difference these things made in my life. Every homeless and foster youth should have the kind of support I had. While the McKinney-Vento Act provides homeless youth with advocates, these people often don't have the time or training to fulfill their responsibilities. I myself never came across one of these people. It shouldn't be left up to chance whether or not someone is available to advocate for a student in need. Changes should be made to ensure that these people are accessible to foster and homeless youth, so that all students have the tools they need to succeed. At the age of 13, I was placed in foster care for the second time. After 6 months in a respite home, which is a temporary placement, I changed homes and schools. I really wanted to stay at my old school, where I was doing well and had finally found a best friend, but it wasn't an option I felt I had. Once again, I became isolated and began falling behind in my classes. All the schools I attended taught portions of the courses at different times, so when I moved schools, I might completely miss 1/2 of the year's lessons and relearn what I had already learned at the other school. Even if a school change is inevitable for a foster or homeless youth, they should be able to receive the help they need to bridge the gaps that might occur because they change schools. After many similar transitions, I finally found myself in a good home. I had a support group that gave me choice and access to things I was interested in. By my sophomore year, my grades finally started reflecting what I was capable of intellectually. However, it couldn't erase the fact that I had skipped major steps in my linear education, which is reflected in my math and science performance. Like many other homeless and foster children who score significantly lower than their peers on standardized tests, I failed the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment of Math and only scored a 21 on my ACT. While that may not seem so bad, it is for someone who knows they're capable of more. The effect of this has also snowballed into me having difficulties getting into college. Not to worry. Fortunately, my social studies and English skills have made up for some of my educational gaps, and I've been accepted into college. I know that if it were not for the support, I could have ended up like my sister or many other foster youth. While my sister is currently surviving, she never got the chance to pursue higher education or receive support in achieving her goals. In fact, because of the school and placement move she experienced, she barely finished high school. I know there are a lot of stories like my sister's. That's why my ultimate goal would be that more young people have good supportive experiences like I did in my sophomore year. On behalf of the 500,000 children in foster care and the 30,000 who will age out of the system this year, I'd like to make the following suggestions. Foster and homeless children should have the right to transportation to their original schools. I know personally that if I'd had the option to stay at my old school, I wouldn't have had so many gaps in my education. I also believe that schools should be required to enroll foster and homeless youth immediately and transfer credits and records quickly. I know that if my records had been transferred while I was in elementary school, I would have had the opportunity to make up the schooling I'd missed. However, I'm very fortunate that they did allow me to enter in school immediately. Finally, as I've said before, counselors or liaisons should be provided for foster and homeless youth to help them succeed in education, because being in foster care is a state of homelessness. It's very similar, and we need very similar support in that. I thank you all again for this opportunity.